Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for another Action Agenda. I am thrilled. I believe this is our third Action Agenda, this one from OPTECH. So I don't know about you, but I was having a huge case of FOMO while everyone was at OPTECH living their best lives. And I am beyond thrilled to tell you that some of the folks I was most jealous of are joining me here today to have a great conversation with us and talk to us about what we can learn from the conference, what their key takeaways were, and how we can all take some of these learnings and apply them to our properties and communities and what we do every day. So I'm going to introduce them or allow them to introduce themselves. And I'm going to start first with Karen I can't even say
Zapkowski.
I'm sorry, Karen.
No, you are fine. You're
this
fine.
afternoon. So Karen, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Karen Zapkowski. I'm the marketing strategist at Town Properties in Cincinnati. I have been in multifamily for about 18 years. I've been with Town for 12, so it's a fabulous company. I started as a property manager. I was an assistant maintenance director for a little while, back to property management, and ended up in marketing. So kind of have a really wide view of all the things that happen.
I think that is a great view to have, is kind of
Yeah.
having that broad experience is incredible.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. We're so excited to hear from you. Pratik.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Pratik Debri. I'm part of the digital leadership team at Avalon Bay. Joined Avalon Bay about 3 years back, and it's been a phenomenal ride so far, trying to deal with the challenges, opportunities within the multifamily space. And prior to Avalon was with CBRE in commercial real estate, and prior to that with a bunch of startups, including bootstrapping my own AI company for some time. So I would say I'm super excited. It was my first OPTECH uh, event that I attended. So yes, it was exciting to see so many people, so many, I would say, companies as well, really focused on the multifamily, prop tech, real estate, technology space. And really, it was good to see a nice blend of both operations and technology impacts on operations, just like the name of the conference as well. So yeah, I'm happy to share more insights as we go along.
Yeah, thank you, Pratik. And then I think hopefully you all know him and adore him as I do, but we also have a special guest appearance from the one and only Brent Williams.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here. Yes, anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Chief Insider at Multifamily Insiders. And OPTECH is my favorite conference. I love it. I always say it's like OPTECH is my people, right? I always I feel immediately at home when I get there. And we're doing a lot more on the tech side over the last several years. We have our Multifamily Demo Day conference, which is a virtual event that showcases different technology suppliers. And we have a new program called Leadership Lab that melds both executive discussions about different challenges facing multifamily and then technology. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So that's actually starting this week. So we have a lot going on. My goodness. So I'm thrilled to be here. Chelsea.
Thank you for being here. And for those of you that don't know me, I am Chelsea Nealand. I am the Innovation Insider. So I am also beyond excited to get to host our fun action agenda and hear from everyone. And I want to start off with asking, Karen, can you tell me kind of what was your most favorite? Karen and I were talking about being nerds earlier, but what was the nerdiest, coolest thing that you heard?
Oh, man. There's so many nerdy things and I love them all. One of the things that this might not be the nerdiest, but that I really liked is talking to prospects, talking to residents, talking to our site teams and figuring out really what they want, what they need, and not just making these assumptions like, oh, this tech is going to make their lives easier. Hearing from them and trying to help them solve their problems, which then helps with the buy-in. Everybody doesn't want us to just change everything that they're doing. But if we can really drill down and figure out what they need and what problems they're having, we can find solutions to help.
I love hearing that, because I think we're at this really cool part of understanding tech where, you know,
Mhm.
when we really, as an industry, started to adopt some new technologies, everyone was trying to understand what they were and
Right.
how they worked. And now it's at the, and what can they do for us and for our teams and help make us better? And how can we really utilize these tools in a way that increases, you know, the happiness for our teams, their satisfaction, because we all
Mhm.
know our workforce is so important. So I
Right.
love hearing that.
Yes.
Yeah, we were just talking about this as we were getting started, and you were saying a lot of the same things. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, as far as the workforce goes, how you're seeing AI and the workforce kind of meld together in the future, and what you learned from OPTECH?
Yeah, so a couple of observations there, right? It's really today's workforce, they all of them have probably uh, lived in this era where they want to do everything on their mobile devices. They want simple, intuitive experiences. And when they join Avalon Bay and we ask them, oh, you need to go to a system that was designed or built in the 90s with very complex workflows, many of them just puts their hands up saying, can't you make it simpler? So that's kind of some of the feedback I've received when I've gone visited multiple of our communities. And we ask them also to kind of copy paste stuff between multiple different systems that we have. So that really poses a big challenge. So how can we make it very easy for our associates to access technology, update the right information within technology? And there was a lot of companies at OPTECH that were showing that off as well, right? So one place you go to and it's automatically fed into multiple different systems. The other thing which specifically with Gen AI, especially ChatGPT or its equivalents, right, like a Gemini or so, is when associates join Avalon Bay, it is how do they quickly get ramped up on all the policies, procedures of how Avalon Bay operates in certain jurisdictions. Now, that's been an ongoing challenge at Avalon Bay because there's so many nuances. They probably have to search on SharePoint and probably find 5 different documents with some conflicting information. So what's the thing that they should believe so that they can accurately communicate that information back to the resident? And I would say there is where a AI or a Gen AI powered tool can really simplify, and an associate can just chat with the chatbot and then get the right level of information specific to that jurisdiction or even specific to that community. That's something that we are very excited about. We are calling it like an agent assist uh, for our associates as well. So
Yeah.
that should help them get trained, ramped up pretty quickly.
What a powerful idea, Brent. I know you were talking about that a little bit earlier as well, talking about how AI can help support training, and expand on that a little bit for us.
Yeah, and I love particularly you were talking about earlier about we have such high turnover that, getting people ramped up. And if they're not going to be there very long, we have a window of opportunity that they can be productive. And so using AI then to give them all the resources that they need very quickly so they can be more productive is amazing. Margette was talking about at Wilbridge. She was saying how she was using AI to again reference policies and procedures, but also on the training side, create individual and I could be misunderstanding a bit, but individualized training programs for people. So understanding their specific needs. A lot of times when we're thinking about training, we're thinking about, we push out to all of our team members, but it ends up being homogenous in what our message is. But if we can understand what their deficiencies are on an individual basis, then we can have a much better impact on, having specific training for a specific person that's going to match with their specific needs. So really cool stuff on that front.
I mean, how exciting to think about the possibilities of having on the spot, tailored, personalized training. Because while we are having some, I would say, dips in trying to have a fully staffed workforce, it's also part of that is that we are taking those that are working with us and we are elevating them to positions maybe a little faster than in the past. I think I used to joke about the leasing agent to manager regional pipeline was like maybe 7-10 years long. And now I think that time frame has really shortened a lot. So this is a really cool tool for us to be able to say, hey, here's an opportunity for us to get these folks exactly what they need and make sure that they can move ahead in their career, because I know how important career mapping and career development is to our teams overall. So Karen, one of the other things go ahead, Brent. Yeah.
Let me interject real quick. For anybody watching right now, we are sharing our favorite parts about OPTECH, but I'm guessing there are some of you who were there as well, or maybe you have questions about what was happening there. Share your favorite things that you saw in OPTECH in the chat, and I'm going to do my best. I'm not nearly as good as Chelsea at this, but we're going to try to then share some of your things that you share in chat. Your favorite parts of OPTECH. Okay, back to you all.
No, that's okay, Brent. I was actually going to say hello because I saw one of our own industry AI experts, Justin Jones, in the chat. So I was going to say hi to everybody in the chat. And we've got great comments, some really brilliant minds who are giving us some information over there too. So yes, hello to everybody in our chat. Thank you for joining us. Keep bringing us the feedback and the good stuff. Okay, so Karen, one of the things we talked about that I want to bring up is while there's so much excitement around large, language learning models and around AI and all the things we can do, we also know that with any new technology, there can be some fear, right? And I think that you were possibly in a session that talked about how to make sure our teams and those who are working with us in multifamily understand that AI isn't going to take their jobs, but that this can be a tool to help them do their jobs better. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember they were talking about there are some jobs out there like paralegals and architects might need to, keep their eyes open. But as far as we go, when we look at some of the tools that we're using and how it can help our site teams, we're not trying to take over what they're doing. We're trying to give them the opportunity to do other things. So instead of sitting there and responding to email after email after email, they have the opportunity to go out and build those relationships with residents and help them and be the faces of the communities and really help with what the properties need, which is that resident retention. And it's not coming for their jobs. It's the hope is to lighten their load a little bit. Like when I was on site, we didn't have time. There's not enough hours. We're doing invoices, we're scanning checks, we're doing all the things. So the technology that's coming out is to help and hopefully ease their minds a little bit instead of stress them out.
Yeah, there are so many incredible ways to use these tools to be able to take away some of the tasks that I always say could free up your brain space for that human touch, which I think is going to be a key differentiator in the future, is, which companies are able to really meld together tech with that human touch and making sure we have those relationships, and that'll really set them apart. Pratik, do you have something to say about this topic? You looked like you were right on the verge there.
No, I think Karen said it very well. And just to add on to that, right, some of the tasks that I see on site with our folks is they are copying data between one system to the other because that's what the process told them to do. And why can't we just use basic automation, right? Like robotic process automation or RPA to move data from one system to the other for accuracy, for completeness purposes. So that's something that comes to mind. And yes, whenever I've spoken to a lot of associates, they are like, yeah, if you could do that, that will save a lot of time on my plate. And then I can really engage with the customers. Whereas that is where I really like most associates feel they add the most amount of value when they engage with residents.
Yeah, of course, because it's still such a human-centric business. Brent, what were you going to add here?
I think this also mirrors what I heard a lot of people talking about with their overall implementation of tech stacks, where over the last couple of years, there was just a fire hose of implementations and adopting new things. And this might be a horrible analogy, so just bear with me. But I feel like it's almost like, the eating, right? So we took a whole bunch of bites, right? And now we've had our meal and now it's digesting. And so rather than before we can have some more bites, right? everything needs to settle down and get optimized and rethought through. How is it actually impacting the on-site teams? Because as Karen was saying, there's so many things that we threw at them over the last couple of years that I heard so many struggles from the on-site teams that trying to manage all these different systems was overwhelming. So I feel like right now in multifamily, we're digesting, and that digesting may last through, some portion of 2025, and then before we're ready to start having our next meal.
And
yes,
no, I think too, explaining the why are we doing this? Why are we bringing this new idea? I know if I tell my kids, if they're like, why are we doing this? I'm like, because I said so. That's not going to go over as well as if I actually give them a minute and talk to them and tell them how this can help and make things better. So I think really just being transparent with everybody and, having kind of everybody speak the same language and really, really help too.
Yes, I know that I heard a lot, and I do not remember who. I want to say it was Paul, which I'm giggling because he just got a little quote up. I think Paul posted this, that one of the sessions he was in, someone said a phrase that I know and love that I mention all the time. That's like death by data or being KPI'd to death. I think we were all so excited to get our hands on all of this information. And like Brent, to your point, to have all of this tech and all of this data to be able to say, okay, here's how we're going to make our decisions, that we almost got a bit overwhelmed and kind of overwhelmed our teams with all of the KPIs and all of the data we had access to. And now we have an opportunity to really take a more holistic view and see what's working well for us. So I love that. I keep thinking of it as if it's almost like the UX is becoming more important for our workforce, not just for our residents. Like we're really starting to understand what the user experience is for our teams. And that's so important. Anybody else have anything on that topic as we're talking about it they want to chat about? Brent, did you have anything else there?
I think we're good.
We're good. All right, y'all. Well, let's keep moving on. I know we talked a little bit about, and look at Paul. He said Ebony at JBG Smith is who said that. So Ebony, shout out to you, because same, my friend. It's gonna be I think a new slogan for everyone. It was really an impactful thing to think about. So we've talked a little bit about workforce and our teams and how we can help them with tech there and how important the user experience is for our teams. Let's talk a little bit about what we heard at OPTECH as far as the resident and customer experience goes, because I get very, very, very excited about this. And I am going to ask Brent to tell us first about an idea he heard. I think it might have been from Matt Rogers. Brent, we all were oohing and awing over this, so please tell us.
Yeah. Matt, I love hearing Matt speak. He's amazing. And I don't know, I can't remember if he was saying that they were actually implementing this or it was just an idea, or I don't know where it was. So Matt, forgive me on this, but he was saying that on the prospect journey, they were considering having autonomous cars then do a tour, but of the outside community. So they could then, make a journey that would say, okay, I'm going to take them to the great local coffee shop and maybe some local schools to show them where that is, and the grocery store that's nearby. So basically tour then outside of their own community, the community at large. And oh my goodness, I can't imagine how cool that would be to go visit a community and then get taken around the surrounding area to see what all the cool spots were.
I can't get over this. Ever since I heard it, it's all I can think about is how amazing, because not to age myself, but I can remember my little points of interest map and me telling my prospects way back when, have you ever heard of Starbucks? There's a really cool one right here. You'll love it. So man, what an incredible and innovative use of technology, but doing something that really has the customer in mind. Mm-hmm. At the end, that is such a cool way to do this. I know I keep going back and forth with everyone, but Karen, you talked a little bit about some of the things that were important when you were saying one of your top takeaways was that how important tech will be in understanding what the customers actually want, not just guessing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that or tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, and I think kind of what, Brent was talking about with that idea, you get a view, you can build as a lifestyle view
Yeah.
for the prospect. If you live here, like, imagine all these things, not just your apartment. So that is really, really neat. And I think just asking them and asking more questions and getting more in depth at that discovery stage of trying to figure out exactly what people are looking for and kind of build these prospect images of, what people want can be powerful and a great tool to have when you're, I'm on the marketing side. So when we're trying to come up with those marketing plans and trying to determine what our residents look like and what they're looking for and what they want to do and where they want to be. So yeah, just more asking, just ask. More surveys.
Yes, surveys are always one of my favorite
Surveys
things.
are always great.
Yes, always great. And I love that now we'll have the combination, the more powerful combination, I think, of data with all of these tech platforms that we are using to say, hey, maybe even, it's really crazy, y'all. Sometimes people tell us they want something and then they don't actually ever use it, right? I always joke, no one get mad at me. Okay, that's the first thing. But I always joke, I'm like, which person just decided that we all wanted a pool? I'm not saying we don't want pools, but why was that our top selling amenity from 1964 to today?
Yeah.
Like, it's all about the pool. Do people use them? Do they actually care about that? Because I am a big advocate for the library. So whomever decides to develop a community with a library first, I've been on this for a while, but you'll have your first resident in me and all of my nerd book friends. But I do think it's really important for us to understand what the customers want now and how it's changed. Pratik, I know you were talking a little bit about that as well, about the customer experience. I know we even talked a little bit about robots, but tell me a little bit about what you learned about the customer experience at OPTECH.
Yeah, and this is, I think, going back to one of Brent's comments, right? Is we got a lot of, I would say, point solutions that each one of us deployed, right, to focus on specific tasks. And I think if I look back now, it's really we've given customers or residents like, yeah, you have to use, if you want to live with Avalon Bay, you have to use 3 to 4 different apps, right, to do your day-to-day job. So how do we kind of step back, look at, okay, what is really meaningful from a resident perspective? Is the answer a single unified app that allows you to do multiple things? Or is it using conversational agents or a virtual personal concierge, right? So it's someone you can text, you can chat with, that so that you can kind of conduct your day-to-day tasks while living with Avalon Bay. So I felt that was a very interesting point. Like, it's kind of people are taking a pause, looking at exactly what do the residents care about, what do our associates care about. And then the other thing that I also saw, which is probably something new in the last maybe 6 months to a year, is there is a lot of services offerings that companies have been built around, which offer certain services to customers. And if I unpeel the onion, it is really everything is powered with technology. So you have an app to have a dog walker, a nanny, or with fully integrated smart access, so you really don't have to wait outside the door, hand the keys over, etc. And you can do a lot of monitoring of who entered your house or what service did you avail as well. So I thought that was a cool new concept. So even though there are services that consumers are availing, it's really all powered by technology behind the scenes.
Yeah. And I think that model of services as amenities is really becoming increasingly powerful in our market overall. And I think that was a big topic, right, of how we can use tech to increase what services we offer. And Pratik, to your point, what that end experience looks like for our customers. I do think we were all so excited about, and I'll make this as the joke because I don't think anybody does this, but having an app for your blinds in your community and an app for your sound system and an app for your locks. And we were all thrilled to be the first to market that technology. And then we realized, oh, our residents might not want to have to log on to an app to not have the sun shining in their face at 6 in the morning, right? What does that actually feel like for them? And so I love that we're, again, Brent, to your earlier point, coming back to a more holistic view of what the use of these pieces of tech feel like for our residents. What else did you see around that topic, Brent?
Well, as far as the prospect experience, Carla brought up a great point. I'm putting her comment there.
Yep.
Basically, there was a session talking about how to pull in data into the ILSs,
Yes.
mainly to ward off this issue that is becoming an issue beyond multifamily, which is the junk fee question.
Yep.
And the problem is that they want transparencies in all the different levels of fees, but there are a lot of different potential fees that could happen in multifamily, and a lot of different derivations of each fee, of how it could be assessed and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is both a legislative question, a prospect experience question, and then also a data integration question, which I think is fascinating, where they talked about how to be consistent with the data sources and the data labels and all that stuff, so that we can then effectively pull it into the ILSs, and so that we can transparently show what's the net cost of living in a community, and also any potential fees and that sort of thing. And that way we're getting ahead of this issue rather than waiting for legislation, because once that happens, it's kind of out of our control to some degree. So if we can be ahead of the situation, then it puts us in a better spot.
Well, and in some places there already is some of that. So here in Austin, we actually are having rules just passed by our city council about fees. So I think we're never too late, right? But we've got to really get this figured out very quickly. And I know there's a great conversation in the chat with a lot of folks discussing that. So thank you guys for bringing that up, because I know it is a hot topic right now, which leads me to actually the next thing that I saw in the chat, that I am also a big fan of the question. And I think this is a topic at OPTECH, and I'd love to hear you all, what you think about this. But Justin is saying, what do we do with all that data that we're capturing on our smart home data? How do we protect it? Who gets to use it? And what does it look like? Justin, as another fellow geek, I remember the first time I told a friend group at dinner that their Roomba vacuum has a floor plan of their entire house. Has anybody thought about that before? But now on a scale of our entire industry, I think this is an incredible question: is data integrity, data privacy, and what are we doing? So anybody want to chat about what you learned at OPTECH around that general topic around data? Pratika's like, I do not know.
Yeah, I did not hear it specifically at OPTECH, but
Yeah.
I think generally what I've seen and what I've come to believe is, yes, there's a lot of power in harnessing the data.
Yeah.
As long as it's data about common areas, amenity spaces, like looking at utilization, right? So that it helps us develop newer communities with the right level of common spaces, amenities, etc. But when you go inside the residence apartment or unit, we consciously made a choice not to tap into any of that data, because that's really violating a lot of privacy for the residents. So that's whatever is within the unit is all for the customer to tap into. And we've gone ahead with Nest thermostats, etc., which we absolutely don't have any access to. And we would never like to have access to that as well.
Yeah.
So you're saying that we should not be using Roomba data to identify hoarders?
Don't do it, Brent. Don't do that.
I think there's other better ways to do it, Brent.
Karen, I think from a marketing standpoint, one of the things I can't stop thinking about is how that will be a unique, possibly advantage for communities and for management companies and ownership groups to say, hey, we really value your data privacy, and that could be an incredible selling point in the future. So again, I think we are talking about this, and some of this I think will shift over to how we market our communities in the future as well. And it could get really interesting.
It definitely could get interesting. I mean, there's so much data about us out there, just to begin with, just living our daily lives. We walk into a building, the building's geofenced, we're targeted, we come home, we see commercials. Like, it's all connected. We're constantly giving somebody data about ourselves, whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
And it will be interesting to see how it evolves with more smart home technology and more technology on properties and all of it. It'll be interesting to see what is to come.
Yeah, I wonder how many ads we're going to get because OPTECH was geofenced.
Interesting thought.
So many, I'm sure.
Yes. I also think about, as I have a 17-year-old daughter, so I think a lot about that younger generation coming up, and that they have used all of this tech kind of native their whole lives, right? They have been immersed in using this forever. And how much I'm seeing an urge to want to unplug and kind of detach from some of this. So I'm really interested to kind of contemplate for our next generation, when we're trying to market our communities, what does it look like? Do we go, lean wholesale into, you can do things just by like moving your eyeballs here, right? Like we have people recognition or something. Or is it going to be like, hey, here's a community that's maybe completely not digitized that people are going to find really value in? So I don't know, but I just think these are interesting things to think about in the future. But speaking of data, I know that, Karen, one of the things you talked about too in your points over was data literacy and making sure everyone speaks the same language. Can you speak a little bit to that and what that way was?
Yeah. And I mean, I think just, everybody you work with, from, maintenance to the tip top, it's helpful if everybody knows what everybody's talking about. So when we come with new ideas or new products, there's not the hesitation, there's not the fear from it. They kind of going back to, making sure everybody understands what's happening, just so you can have certain conversations with everybody involved, and just making sure everybody is on the same page, I think, is really important.
Yeah. I think there'll be more and more of a need for that as we continue to implement new things. It is really difficult to make sure that our teams are trained, that our residents understand and our prospects understand what we're talking about. Again, not to make myself sound like a dinosaur, but I can remember saying, hey, when I was teaching leasing classes many years ago, stop talking about industry speak. Your residents don't know what you're talking about. No one understands that. And I can only imagine now, as we're talking about all of this different data, that we've got to figure out those terms that are going to be common and that everyone will understand, and that we make sure we're educating our teams and they have the literacy around, here's what this means, here's the technology we're talking about, here's what we're referring to. Pratik, is this something that you guys are talking about too?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think having a common lingo certainly helps. So we've embarked on an initiative to capture the most accurate, up-to-date information about our inventory. So today we almost capture close to 80 data points per apartment unit. And that required a lot of speaking the common language, because you could describe a balcony in probably like 15 or 20 different ways. But then how do you make the consumer understand the value of that balcony, or maybe it's a den or a nook? So we kind of standardize the nomenclature, and that's now helping us better sell these apartments as well, on what we put on our website, as well as how design, which is our internal design house, to really figure out, okay, what amenities should we actually build when we are building new apartments as well. So completely agreed, Karen. This common lingo, common dictionary is super important. Otherwise, it just becomes a nightmare to analyze what's working and what's not working.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we have the benefit of being able to all talk to each other a lot more easily now, right? We have all these communication tools and all of this data, and it just makes me think that it's going to be more important than ever that someone is able, I use a terrible Brent, if you thought your example was terrible, I always think that of like the folks at the UN who are listening and interpreting, like all those interpreters, right? You almost have to have someone who's interpreting data, interpreting consumer needs, interpreting what your team needs, and kind of making sure it's all in a similar language and everyone's talking about the same things and we all have a common understanding of what's going on so we can move forward. So I think that's a very insightful piece of the conversation. Brent, do you have anything to add to this portion of our discussion?
Well, Carla is asking what was the impact of evolving privacy laws like GDPR on consumer expectations discussed at OPTECH? And I'm not sure if they were specifically. I don't know if you all had heard anything specific on that front, or is it a function of us just being proactive with privacy concerns with data, or are we actually being pushed on by regulations, and then therefore we need to be aware of that? I'm not sure if anybody has anything to share on that, but just want to throw it out there.
Yeah, I think Carla is probably referring to, and just again, look at us trying to speak, all of us speak the same language, but talking about the new legislation around the fees, like if you're texting without an opt-out or maybe a double opt-in even. Yeah. Was that brought up at OPTECH at all, guys? Was that any part of conversations you heard?
Not that I recall. It might have been in a different session, but
yeah, I'm going to be honest and think anytime Carla is one of my favorite people to talk to at the airport. We always tend to be on the same flight and we're like, hey girl, what happened? Talk to me about this. But I'm going to guess that anything about fines, most of our conferences probably step real far away from chat about. But Carla, I've written a note down for that so that we can kind of tackle that and see what we can find out for you. And if I find anything out, I'll let you guys know, because that is such a great question. So a little bit about this that I want to ask y'all. So of all the topics that were covered, and you don't have to give away secret sauce, but I love that this is action agenda, right? So this is, what are the things we want to take away and do? Is there something specifically that you heard that you were like, I want to take action on this when I get back, or I really want to dive deeper into this concept? What was something that you wanted to take action on moving forward?
Just one thing.
I know, it's because there's so much, right? And I think this is one of the things that happens at our conferences is we go and we get inundated with information and cool thoughts and ideas. And then we get back and we almost get into a paralysis of what do we do now? I mean, I know Brent is going to put me in an autonomous car and send me around probably. To stop my yapping. I can picture that. But is there anything that you felt like was really getting you pushed to action? Because I want to hear about it.
There was something small. There was a comment somebody was making about how much data and how much information is in emails. Yes. And especially with prospects and with residents, where you can, take all your emails, throw them into ChatGPT, throw them in somewhere, pull out some common themes, and figure out what people are looking for, what they don't want, what they're happy with. Is the rent too high? Is the rent at a good place? Just so much information you can pull from these conversations that are being had that like no one's really paying attention to. Like, I know we're responding to emails, but after we hit send, we it's gone. So I'm kind of excited to dive into that and see if there's an opportunity there for us to get some really good information about residents and prospects and really what they want. My whole thing is kind of listening to what the resident and what the prospect and the site teams, what they want, but maybe they're not asking.
Yeah, that is an incredible thought of a way to use that. Pratik, do you have anything to say about this before I get so nerded out and excited and talk about it?
No, so I think what I found fascinating, and one big thing was they had a robot up on stage, and I think it was feeling, at least it was making its eye movements, it was talking like a human. It was also listening to the conversation the other panelists were having and trying to summarize or add more to the conversation. So I think this is probably at least a step in the right direction, which is, can we make bots, which could be robots or powered by generative AI tools, part of our day-to-day living experience. I don't think bots are just science fiction. I think bots are real. That's why you saw a bot up on stage at the main presentation hall. So extending that, right, we what some of the takeaways, right, is can we have purpose-built bots? Like they don't need to be robots up on stage, but you could have a bot which is specific to renewals, who's probably trained to be an expert in renewal negotiations or renewal communications. Could we have a bot for leasing, which we already have for a number of years now? Can we extend that to maintenance? So instead of a maintenance tech picking up a call at 2 a.m. in the morning and then, either going to the property or just triaging it over the phone, why can't a bot do it? So I'm kind of seeing how we could have purpose-built bots kind of enter mainstream, probably in the next year or 2 years, right? And this is not a general purpose bot, but a bot who's trained to do one task and one task really well.
I love the idea of taking some pieces of knowledge that we might already have, but not utilizing them in that way. So Pratik, maybe it's the responses to our renewal offers we're putting into, a form of AI to say, hey, what you're saying, Karen, like, what is it that we're missing here? What do we not know about our residents? I want to say it might've been Christy Ficker, and I'm so sorry if it wasn't her. I think it was you, girl. So hello, Christy. But I believe it's Christy who had posted talking to AI and asking ChatGPT or Claude, whatever you use, what is something through all of our interactions that I might not know about myself, and then seeing these responses. So how powerful for us to use that for our customers, right? Or our residents. Like, what is something we may not know about our residents, or what is something that is nuanced that we might not be understanding about our renewal offers? And I think that will be an incredible use of that technology in the future. Not to go too far down a rabbit hole, but my favorite piece of this, if you guys have not played around with the Google Notebook feature, where you can upload data to Google Notebook and it'll create a podcast about the topic with two fake people. Have y'all done this yet? Am I the only nerd?
I know what I'm doing later, though.
Everyone, I'm sorry, every company that just lost like 3 hours of time from every employee on this. But it is so wild to think about. So you can upload information, say, my kiddo's learning about kidneys, you upload whatever that information is, and they'll make like a 15-20 minute podcast where two characters that don't exist talk about that topic and kind of educate you about the information that you uploaded. When I think about the uses for that sort of thing in our industry, it's just mind-blowing. Brent, I see you over there like.
Well, I think the whole idea about understanding, like parsing through all this data to understand the questions, and not only just the questions, but identifying how many of our questions are repetitive. Is it 90% of our questions on maintenance, 90% of our questions on the resident experience are repetitive? And then not only having a way to provide it upon request, but also thinking about our marketing channels to make sure that if we're getting a question that repeatedly, clearly our marketing doesn't properly show that information in their journey in some way, right? So they're not even getting to the question. They don't even have to get to the question because we've already intercepted them before they got to the question, which I think is really fascinating. So I think every community should know exactly, what are the most common questions, and then have a strategy, either intercept or then respond.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, y'all, and in honor of spooky season, Justin and I think Laurel and Kara are over here writing like a sci-fi horror movie in the comments. Sorry, y'all. But I do think, tech is really fascinating. There's so much that we can look at and try to think of new ways to use it in our industry. And man, I am still so jealous for everybody who got to see the robot and how cool that must have been. So we're coming up, kind of getting close to the end of our chat, or a bit away from it, but a little bit closer. Kind of, what was the thing, y'all, that you're like, for somebody who wasn't there, this is the thing that I wish they had seen, or this is what I wish they had heard or taken away, or this was the overall feel of it, what would be the thing that you would tell someone who didn't get to participate in OPTECH that, hey, you should go because you really missed out on whatever it might be? Who wants to go first?
I say, as much as I loved all of the information and learning all of the things, the location and the venue was really, really special because everybody was together. You pop outside and everybody's there. So just the amount of one-on-one time I got to have with people and the people that I met was really neat. I think that was probably my favorite thing, just the one-on-one conversations and learning what people had to say. There are so many smart and fascinating people at OPTECH. So it was just a great opportunity. So don't miss it next time.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we are always still such a relationship-driven industry that I think we can't ever forget, even though we're talking about all of these fun things and we love a robot. Although
Right.
Justin is like, hot take, maybe not, but that we can't forget that at the end of the day, we provide homes to humans. And I used to always try to remind all of my teams that, this is such a personal industry because there's nothing more personal than your home. So whether we're supporting those who provide homes to humans or we're doing it ourselves, that we have to remember the humanity of what we do. And so I think those relationships are so important. And because that's where we learn from each other. Right. How many brilliant conversations have we had by talking to other people or having a spark of an idea from someone else? It's incredible. Pratik, what would you say was your, I wish you knew this if you weren't there comment?
Yes, I think it was definitely good to have a lot of discussions with fellow leaders, right, as well as some of the folks who are trying to, sell technology or sell solutions. And I would say the interesting thing for me was it was not just what they were displaying on the booth or what they were presenting in their speak up sessions, but really trying to understand why they're taking that approach, what are some of the pain points that they have really uncovered. And the other things that I also heard with Red Sea there is kind of trying to come up with a standard for data exchange, right? I think it's called MITS or something else. I think it's also in the comments here. And then how do we drive standardization also across hardware to software integration, right? One classic example is smart access. Like it feels like every company has their own standards. And I would say if we have some kind of standards, or I wouldn't go as far as regulations, but at least a common standard so that everyone adheres to it, similar to wireless technology, right? Like I come from that world in my past life. So I know if we didn't have a common 3G, 4G, 5G standard, guess what? Everyone would be talking on different networks and no one will be able to really communicate with one another. So can we kind of bring that level of standardization to the industry so that it becomes easier for companies, multifamily owners, operators to really innovate and take the next leap? It felt like every vendor was talking somewhat of a different language. So I would say that is something that was fascinating for me, trying to understand, trying to bridge that gap, which is very difficult doing it by looking at someone's website or having a presentation.
Yeah. I think for so long, our industry was really siloed geographically too, right? Not just maybe by different companies or anything like that, but you could have the same company nationwide and have such different pieces of tech or pieces of knowledge. I mean, y'all, I'm so sorry. I was on the East Coast and brilliant things were done there. But coming from Texas, I'll never remember or never forget how blindsided I was by them using pine straw for as like to make a community prettier. And I was like, in East Texas, we throw that away and here you buy it? Like this boggled my mind, which is such a silly example, but it just goes to show that you're right, Pratik, we have to be able to talk about these things the same and kind of be on the same network of information and communication. Because man, I could have shipped them some pine straw from East Texas and saved them like thousands and thousands of dollars. But it is really interesting to think about how it'll change and how our geography will start to meld together and make more sense. Brent, what do you think was that takeaway for you that you're like, I wish you knew this?
I mean, as far as if we're thinking about, the takeaways you get, not necessarily we think about the education sessions, we think about the expo portion. I think that when people think about a conference like this, and I think that we need to get more on the operator side to be joining, these technology conferences, because I think the balance is a little off right now.
Yeah.
And I think that there is so much value that people don't realize from the meetups outside the sessions, in the hallways, and had lunch with just a handful of people who we had the greatest conversation. And you never have that if you're in your own little silo, in your own little working world.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to get people out of their, out of their own little rat race that they get in their own company, to get to a place like OPTECH and check it out.
Yeah, I know that we kind of had whiplash a bit from, we were all at home for, maybe a year or more, no conferences. We were all excited to get back out, and it felt like we all went really big. And now it's like, how can we make those connections again? Shout out to the folks who did the walk or the 5Ks. Like, I'm loving seeing that conferences now we're having 5Ks and walks and all of these cool things where we can connect with each other in a more unique way, and how important that is. I know that's always my favorite part. And I don't know if y'all see in the chat, there's like a whole love fest happening over here. People declaring their love. It's so wonderful. It's just one of my favorite parts about our industry. I am actually coming to you all live from the Austin Apartment Association. I'm giggling because we had a new team member who joined this group here. And when she started, she was new to the industry. And I was like, get ready for some hugging. You don't know that you're comfortable with that, but you will be soon, because everyone is going to hug you. But it is true. We all just adore each other. Well, guys, is there any other thing that we didn't touch on, or anything that you need to say that this was the thing OPTECH really left you with, or that you wish people knew? Pratik, as your first one, did you love it? Was it incredible? Oh, you're still on mute, Pratik.
Sorry.
No,
So it was really good. I think I really liked all the conversations, and I'm really trying to understand, why certain things are being done certain ways.
Yeah.
So it was a fun experience.
Good deal. Karen, anything from our two-timer now? You're like,
Right. I am all ready for next year. I am counting down the days to do it again.
I love it. Brent, yes. I know you were I don't want to say an old timer, because I would like to keep my but you're like me. We've been to many an OPTECH, although I wasn't there this year. What's our alumni position from OPTECH?
I think the value of going to several events like this is that you see the innovation hit the conversation. People start talking about something, but then it's always in theory at that point. Like, how is this going to work? And then if you go to several, then you start seeing actually get implemented. And sometimes it's right. It's like sometimes like spot on, like that's exactly what we wanted to see. And sometimes like this is not at all what it was hyped up to be. And I personally love that kind of wave as it goes from excitement to reality, and how is it actually impacting the communities. So that's a lot of fun year over year.
Yeah, absolutely. Brent, I hear there's some other important conversations coming up in our group with Multifamily Insiders. Do you want to touch on that real quick, since we have just a moment or two left?
Yeah. So if you all are being impacted by fraud at your communities, we have some executive roundtables through our new Leadership Lab event. That is our first one is this week. This is a brand new series for us. We're doing deep dives into specific challenges and even opportunities in multifamily, where we're both talking about the challenges and then solutions as well. So we're trying to bring it full circle on having some really cool conversations. So I hope you all can check that out.
Yeah. And y'all, thank you so much, Karen. What a delight. Pratik, incredible conversation and insight. And Brent, thank you for coming and joining us. Although it was a little bit last minute, I'm so grateful. This was one of my absolute favorite events that we do, is having this action agenda. So I couldn't do it without all of your help, and everybody who's in our audience. Thank you for giving us the honor of an hour of your time. We know how important that is. And everybody who gave us ideas and information, Paul, Justin, Jamie, Kara, hello, book club friend. I'm so glad to see all of you. Thank you for supporting us and being part of the conversation. It makes a huge difference. We will see you for our next action agenda from our next conference. I don't even know which one it is coming up, but we'll figure it out and we'll be there, and we'll be sure to bring back these insights to all of you because hopefully it's helpful and incredible. Have a great rest of your week. Happy spooky season, and have a happy Halloween. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.